want to have more kids.
You do?
Yeah.
More kids? That sounds like many.
I mean, you know how whatever my body could take and I feel like I can take.
Cardi B's fourth baby was never just a cute new chapter. It was a pressure point, and insiders say the trap was set long before the public saw a bump or a baby announcement. While she was carrying her first son with NFL star Stefon Diggs in 2025, reports were already swirling that he was sharing his time, his attention, and possibly his future with more than one household, and that she was stepping into a role she once mocked, the famous partner who is not actually the priority. By the time she confirmed the pregnancy on CBS Mornings in mid-September 2025 and called Diggs my boyfriend on air, he had already gone public about expecting a boy, already walked red carpets in Houston and Boston as a newly minted Patriots receiver, and already shown the world that he knew how to turn a family storyline into a brand moment. We can see how this pregnancy was framed as empowerment for her, but functioned as leverage for him.
What does it mean to be a mother?
It means everything. It's like a feeling that it's undescribable. It's like love, joy, it's everything. Yeah.
Cardi, welcome. We know the timeline here is not vague. In early May 2025, Diggs stood on a red carpet and told reporters that he was expecting a son with Cardi, giving a sound bite about how excited he was to have a boy he could train, push, and raise in his own image. Weeks later, on May 12th, they made their courtside debut at Madison Square Garden during a Boston Celtics versus New York Knicks playoff game, where cameras caught her leaning in, squeezing his face, and officially turning months of online speculation into a hard launch. That same spring, he closed a 3-year, $69 million deal with the New England Patriots, instantly shifting him from a star receiver to the financial anchor of a new era in Foxborough. When we line that up against her stalled divorce from Offset, her ongoing custody negotiations, and her still unreleased album, Am I the Drama?, we start to understand why this baby became the center of a much bigger power game. But the real red flag did not arrive with the courtside smiles. It showed up on her Instagram grid in July 2025, or more accurately, disappeared from it. Over 4th of July weekend, fans noticed that every trace of Diggs had vanished from her page, barely a month after they went Instagram official with romantic photos and a Paris Fashion Week fairy tale. Within days, she reposted a clips from his new YouTube vlog titled Mental Reset, where the two of them were sweating through a couple's workout somewhere in Europe, confirming that they were still in the same rooms, still filming together, still selling the image. A source speaking to TMZ said they were not officially broken up, and that the wipe did not mean the relationship was over. For a lot of viewers, it looked like a lover's spat. For people watching the patterns, it looked like something colder, a warning shot about who controlled the narrative. Because when a woman deletes a partner at the peak of public hype, then brings him straight back through a professionally shot workout video, it rarely signals romance, it signals strategy. By July 8th, that mental reset video had done its job, circulating across social platforms, reminding everyone that this was still a brand new power couple, not a collapsed fling. At the same time, fan accounts were resurfacing the lavish June 24th castle stay in France, where Cardi filmed herself wandering through stone halls, laughing about crocodiles in the moat, and telling viewers that Diggs was so rich he had her living like royalty. It is hard to ignore the timing. Within weeks of that display of wealth and devotion, she scrubbed him from her feed, then reinserted him through a clip he controlled. We are watching money, image, and access being used as soft pressure, with her emotional volatility becoming part of the content pipeline.
A few minutes, and sources with direct knowledge close to the couple tell TMZ that the split has nothing to do with the latest.
Behind that, the financial and legal stakes were only getting sharper. In March 2025, Diggs' Patriots contract locked in tens of millions in guaranteed money, making him one of the most valuable pieces of the team's rebuild and putting him in a different tier than most of the men who had ever tried to publicly woo her. At the same time, her second divorce filing from Offset, originally made in July 2024, was still not resolved, with their December 2024 X feud exposing just how messy the negotiations had become. During that blow-up, Offset publicly claimed he would not sign the paperwork until she agreed to split custody of their 3 young ones, turning their private legal fight into a bargaining chip he was willing to dangle in front of millions of followers. While Diggs used castles, courtside seats, and NFL visibility, Offset held the line on custody and legal freedom. 2 men, 2 very different levers, 1 woman caught between.
All I'm saying is, if I felt like my girl was cheating, I'm gonna get it off of these 2. If I felt like my girl was cheating, and she said these things to dispel my thought, it would not be dispelled.
No,
at all. It would actually strengthen.
Absolutely.
Insiders in Diggs' circle now claim that while Cardi was still pregnant and filming interviews about how strong and powerful she felt creating a baby while working, he was already having private conversations with another woman about expanding his family yet again. Those claims have not been confirmed on record by his team, and no second pregnancy has been acknowledged, but the whispers matter because of the context. Diggs was already a father to daughters Nova and Charlie before he ever took Cardi to that Knicks game. His identity as a family man was well established long before the People magazine stories about the new baby boy. If he was truly discussing another child while Cardi was still in her third trimester, then every grand romantic gesture in the spring and summer of 2025, from the medieval mansion in France to the carefully timed red carpet reveals, looks less like devotion and more like standard playbook for a man who knows how to keep multiple narratives spinning at once.
I don't like talking about my feelings because people like when you show weakness, people be like, oh, sympathy, and I feel like at first I thought they was doing it to me, but now I see they do that to every female rapper.
So you feel you can't like honestly be vulnerable because?
Yes, I'm afraid to be vulnerable because people want to say, oh, you be looking for sympathy, but.
Meanwhile, Cardi was doing her own version of narrative management in public, and the gap between her words and the documented behavior of the men around her is where the psychological trap starts to come into focus. On September 17, 2025, she sat down with Gayle King on CBS Mornings and confirmed what the blogs had already pieced together, telling the anchor, "I'm having a baby with my boyfriend, Stefon Diggs," and explaining that she felt strong and powerful juggling work and pregnancy at the same time. She described them as being in a good place, very supportive of each other and aligned in their careers, presenting the relationship as a stable next chapter after years of turbulence with Offset. That was the official line. But less than a year earlier, on December 18, 2024, Offset had blasted her on X, accusing her of being focused on private encounters rather than music and refusing to sign the divorce papers unless they split custody. Those posts were not coming from anonymous accounts. This was a man she had married in 2017, the father of her 3 older children, openly suggesting that she was prioritizing new flings and club appearances over her art and her responsibilities, and weaponizing that narrative in the middle of custody talks. In response, she told him to sign the papers today, insisted that dating while single did not make her obsessed with intimacy, and called out what she framed as his attempts to block her from moving on by messaging men she was linked to. The world saw a public spat, memes, and think pieces about toxic celebrity co-parenting. But if we track that energy forward into 2025, it also laid the groundwork for how vulnerable she would be stepping into a new high-profile relationship while her legal status was still in limbo. Offset could hold up the divorce. Diggs could hold up the fantasy.
I just took it as a sign. So I wanna start 2024 like fresh.
By the time November 2025 arrived and news outlets confirmed that she had quietly welcomed her 4th baby, a boy, the split between her personal branding and the underlying dynamics was stark. In her birth announcement, she framed the moment as a new season, talking about bringing a new album and a new baby into the world, about having one more reason to be the best version of herself. People magazine and the New York Post amplified that framing, emphasizing that she was healthy and happy, showing photos from earlier that year of her glowing on stage and courtside with Diggs. Yet, by then, fans had already watched the July social media wipe, the confusing workout video comeback, the Castle tour, and the unending divorce drama with Offset. We can see why some insiders now describe her position not as a romantic rebirth, but as a carefully staged compromise where everyone around her had more hard leverage than she did. That is why the core question hanging over this story is not whether she loves her new baby or whether Diggs cares about his growing family. Those answers are almost too easy. The real tension comes from asking whether he ever truly wanted a traditional partnership with her in the first place, or whether securing a Grammy-winning co-parent at the exact moment his Patriots era began was the smarter move. If insiders are right and he was already exploring the idea of another household while she was still pregnant, then this is not just a messy love triangle between Cardi, Diggs, and Offset. It is a map of who gains what when a superstar steps into motherhood again, while one man controls the legal exit from her last marriage and another controls the castle keys and the highlight reels. And as more whispers surface about private negotiations, off-camera conversations, and who really knew what, we are left staring at a harsher possibility that no one around her is eager to confirm.
It's like, what are we? Okay, I see what you're trying to do. You competing, but y'all just switching girlfriends. It's like, what is this?
What are we doing?
So I get it. Do I approve of it? Part of me is like, yeah, because I see what Offset is trying to do. He's like, yo, I gotta fight.
While she was recovering from childbirth and posting soft focus captions about new chapters and new seasons, we have insiders claiming that Stefon Diggs was already finalizing plans for another baby with a different woman, and the timeline they describe overlaps almost perfectly with her pregnancy. According to one former associate in his circle, private conversations about expanding the family again were happening in the fall of 2025, right as Cardi was juggling newborn care, album rollout, and early tour prep. Around the same time, his online footprint started shifting in ways fans did not miss. Fewer likes on her posts, more interaction with an older friend group out of Houston, and a quiet reappearance of a familiar face from his past on shared stories and comments. When we put that next to Cam Newton's July 2025 commentary about Diggs and Offset just switching girlfriends like students swapping test papers, it stops feeling like a random rumor and starts looking like a pattern he has been running for years.
Down. The internet always causes unnecessary problems, unnecessary disagreements, unnecessary things, because a lot of the stuff on the internet and on the line isn't true. So I would just say they need to have that conversation, a real conversation. I'm not leaving this room until it's done, and those are the toughest conversations. When your wife wants to have a conversation, those are the toughest things because you got to put everything on the table. That's the only way something's going to work. Everything has to go on the table for you to possibly be able to move on, and I'm hoping that they can have that conversation.
We can see the digital breadcrumbs stacking up after the birth. In late October and early November 2025, Diggs leaned into solo branding moves, posting training clips in Patriots gear, locker room selfies, and motivational captions, while leaving her newborn-centered content largely unacknowledged in his own main feed. At the same time, a woman long linked to him before Cardi re-emerged in proximity liked photos from mutual friends, old vacation memories resurfacing on throwback posts, and sightings in the same venues as players from his former teams. An industry source who has worked with NFL families told us that this did not read like a clean ex is gone, new family in break. It looked more like a rotation. When they connect that to Newton's critique that these men are treating partners like interchangeable trophies rather than long-term commitments, the idea of overlapping timelines becomes less shocking and more like exactly what the playbook predicts. That context hits differently when we remember what Cardi was doing publicly in the same window. On September 19, 2025, she finally released Am I the Drama, the sophomore album fans had waited 7 years for, and she sold it as a statement of rebirth. The teaser trailer about trading in grace for hell and shedding feathers was framed like a phoenix moment, a woman who had outgrown chaos and was stepping into a new, self-controlled era. But as a former road manager points out, once the offstage story is laid alongside those lyrics, that language feels less like empowerment and more like someone trying to talk herself out of the knot she is still sitting in. While she was on press runs, explaining that she had learned and healed, the whispers inside NFL and hip-hop circles were that Diggs was already emotionally checking out and exploring a plan B.
I don't know. I think it's probably 3 factors. I feel like, I don't know, I get a lot of hate. Is it because I respond to it? So people...
Oh, you respond to it.
I respond to it.
You will stop the whole world with a tweet. My team, as soon as Cardi tweets could have been a segment at Hollywood Unlocked, because they'd be like, yo, my team, Keisha right there, she'd be like, Cardi tweeted. What did Cardi do? You will respond.
We now have people close to Cardi's camp insisting that her own team saw this coming. A PR consultant who has worked adjacent to her brand says that months before the baby arrived, staffers quietly raised alarms that Diggs benefited more from the pairing than she did. On paper, he had just secured a 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed from the Patriots, instantly rebranding himself as a cornerstone of a storied franchise after an injury-shortened stint in Houston. She, meanwhile, was carrying a pregnancy into her mid-30s, financing a big budget tour, and covering full-time care for 4 young ones while still legally tied to a man threatening to weaponize custody. According to this insider, some people in her orbit warned that he was using the relationship for shine, not security. But she pushed ahead because, after years of lies and scandals with Offset, she felt she finally deserved to be publicly chosen. When we drill down into the numbers, the imbalance becomes even clearer. Diggs' $26 million guaranteed means that before he takes a single snap in Foxborough, the checks are locked. His risk is primarily physical and reputational. For Cardi, every tour rehearsal, stage build, dancer, stylist, and security detail for a 2026 arena run translates to millions in upfront costs that only pay off if tickets sell and she can physically show up. On top of that, she is now coordinating 4 separate childcare schedules across 2 men, one of whom is fighting for split custody and publicly accusing her of prioritizing clubs and private encounters over music. An entertainment accountant familiar with similar situations says bluntly that, in this dynamic, the NFL player with guaranteed money and no custody fight holds more concrete stability than the chart-topping rapper spinning plates in public. That is where the Paris Castle trip stops looking cute and starts feeling calculated. In June 2025, Diggs rented that medieval mansion in France, complete with crocodile-filled moats, chandeliers, and a dining room ripped from a period drama, and she told fans on Instagram that it was insane and that he was so rich for putting her in a real castle. At face value, it was a romantic gesture from a man spoiling his partner while she prepped a major album rollout. But one source who has worked with NFL players on image building describes those extravagant trips as classic distraction tactics. Flood social media with luxury, let the partner feel adored, and, in the background, keep other options open. When we remember that weeks after that fairy tale, she wiped him from her grid, then reappeared in his content as a workout buddy, the castle starts to look less like a love letter and more like expensive misdirection.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't solve the issues. It's a fun night, then guess what? The next day we arguing. The next day I'm blocking. Then next thing you know, we ain't talking for 4 days.
Behind that glossy content, the legal nightmare back home was still unresolved. Offset's refusal to sign divorce papers without split custody of their 3 young ones meant Cardi could not fully close one door before opening another. December 2024 saw them drag each other across X, with him accusing her of being locked in a hoeing era, and her firing back that he would not let her move on, messaging every man she tried to date and demanding joint parenting time as the price for his signature. That standoff did not magically disappear when she began stepping out with Diggs. It followed her into 2025 as a quiet but constant pressure. We can see how, in that environment, a partner who can offer castles, courtside seats, and a new family narrative looks like a lifeline, even if parts of that narrative are already cracking.
And we've been, my bad guys, I'm fucking, I want to cough, but I don't want to, that's kind of gross coughing on my phone.
Financially and emotionally, this left Cardi in a corner. She had 4 little ones depending on her income and stability, an ex using the legal system as leverage, and a new partner whose contract guaranteed him tens of millions whether or not he ever played hero in her life story. Insiders claim that some in her team tried to frame it in stark terms. Offset held her freedom papers, Diggs held the luxury and a fresh family image, and she was standing in the middle, hoping the album and the baby would reset everything. Instead, the pattern from her marriage seemed to be repeating. There were grand gestures, rumors of overlapping relationships, social media wipes, and carefully timed reconciliations, all playing out while she talked about self-love and new eras.
And then he just screaming and just throwing things, throwing up, running all over, and I was so scared.
When Cam Newton stepped into the conversation, he put words to what many fans were already sensing. In that July 2025 clip, he mocked the way Offset and Diggs appeared to be competing over the same circles of women, saying they were passing scantrons and grading each other's paper, and finally that they were just switching girlfriends. He questioned the maturity behind those moves and, crucially, pointed out the financial comparison. Offset might have money, but, as he put it, not Stefon money. And men in these situations often obsess over how the new guy stacks up. Coming from a former league MVP, this was not just messy commentary. It was a blunt read on how ego and bank accounts drive the way these men treat the women in their orbit. At the same time, Cardi's own lyrics and visuals were telling a parallel story. The Am I the Drama rollout leaned heavily on images of birds, feathers, and transformation. In one teaser, she talked about shedding feathers and being beyond rather than simply back, signaling that she had moved past old habits and pain. But as more details about Diggs' alleged offstage behavior surfaced, fans began reinterpreting those lines in real time. Was she describing a woman who had transcended chaos, or someone who realized too late that she had flown straight into the same storm with a different face? A music journalist who covered the album notes that certain bars about betrayal and realizing someone only wanted the spotlight beside her now sound uncomfortably close to what insiders say about Diggs' intentions. Then there's the emotional fallout we rarely see on camera. Sources say that after the baby's arrival, Cardi cycled rapidly between fierce public confidence and private frustration as competing narratives about her motherhood and love life exploded online. She was preparing for the Little Miss drama tour, hitting the gym, and publicly insisting she felt strong and powerful. Yet she also watched headlines paint Diggs as the one winning the off-season, while Offset popped up in clubs with women connected to Diggs' past. One insider claims she confided that she felt like everyone around her was playing a game where she was the scoreboard, not the player, but that she could not afford to look hurt when sponsors, labels, and fans were watching. All of this brings us to the harsh conclusion many observers are now whispering. When we strip away the castles, the courtside kisses, the album aesthetics, and the carefully worded interviews, what remains is a familiar structure. Cardi B attached to a man whose loyalty is questioned, juggling accusations of overlapping romances, trying to hold together a public image while private alliances shift under her feet. With Offset, it was years of rumors, reconciliations, and a divorce that still is not cleanly closed. With Diggs, it is whispers of another baby plan, resurfaced exes, and commentary from fellow athletes suggesting the relationship was always more about status than soul. So here's the reality no one around her wants to spell out clearly on mic. Cardi B did not just settle for Stefon Diggs. She appears to have settled for the same dynamic she lived through with Offset, just dressed up in NFL jerseys and castle tours instead of studio sessions and surprise roses. Chaos, questionable loyalty, and a man who, if these insiders are right, treats her as optional while enjoying the visibility she brings. The only real twist this time is that she might be the one choosing to pretend it is still a love story for as long as the cameras are rolling. Unless, of course, this has been her strategy from day one, and what looks like heartbreak is only the setup. What if Cardi's next move is not to crumble, but to come back swinging with receipts, revenge bars, and a new chapter that forces everyone involved to answer for what they did when they thought she would stay quiet? Let us know what you think, because if this saga is only halfway told, the comments might be where the next chapter starts, and until we see her next move, we will be right here watching it unfold with you.